My fiance looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Guys, these days are so clingy, I just want a fresh start." Days earlier, I'd caught her Tinder profile where she wrote, "Single and looking for something real." I just smiled, withdrew our $28,000 wedding fund, and moved out while she was at work. 2 weeks later, she was unemployed, broke, and begging, "Please, I need to explain." I 29M found out my fiance, Bessie, 27F, has been using dating apps and telling people she was single while we were planning our wedding. I didn't scream, cry, or cause a scene. I just withdrew the $28,000 I had saved for our wedding and moved out while she was at work. 2 weeks later, her whole life fell apart. And somehow, I'm the villain who abandoned her without giving her a chance to explain. The whole relationship was a lie, and now everyone can see her true character. Throw away because this involves real people and I don't need more drama. Bessie and I had been together for 3 years. I genuinely thought we had something real. We talked about everything, our future kids, where we wanted to live, what kind of life we wanted to build together. She seemed just as excited about getting married as I was. We would spend hours looking at venues online, talking about guest lists, and planning every detail of what was supposed to be the best day of our lives. I'm a software engineer and I've always been good with money. From the moment I decided I wanted to marry her, I started saving aggressively. $28,000 over 2 years, that was supposed to be our dream wedding. Every time I transferred money into that wedding savings account, I pictured her walking down the aisle toward me. I worked overtime, took on extra projects, even sold my motorcycle to add to that fund. She worked as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized company downtown. Good job, decent pay, seemed happy there. We had our routines, dinner together most nights, weekend trips, double dates with friends. Everything felt normal, stable, like we were building something real together. The proposal was perfect. I spent months planning it, got her best friend to help me pick out the ring, chose a spot that meant something to both of us. When she said yes, I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. The ring was beautiful, a classic solitaire. Nothing too flashy, exactly what she had always said she wanted. But looking back now, there were signs I completely missed. The first thing that should have bothered me more was the ring situation. After the proposal, I noticed she never wore her engagement ring to work. When I asked about it, she had ready explanations. She was worried about it getting damaged. Her job involved a lot of hands-on work with marketing materials. She didn't want to seem like she was showing off to her single co-workers. All of those reasons seemed reasonable at the time. I trusted her completely, so I accepted her explanations without question. But it nagged at me in the back of my mind. She also became really protective of her phone around the same time we got engaged. She used to leave it lying around, never minded if I grabbed it to check the weather or look something up. But suddenly, she was always taking it with her to the bathroom, keeping it face down during dinner, getting weird if I was near her when she was texting. Her work schedule got more unpredictable too. Suddenly, there were more after-work events, more weekend conferences, more last-minute projects that kept her out late. When I suggested coming to some of her work functions as her fiancé, she always had reasons why it wouldn't work out. Too boring for me, not really appropriate for partners, mostly just networking stuff I wouldn't enjoy. The social media thing was strange too. She used to post pictures of us all the time, but after we got engaged, those posts became rare. When I mentioned it, she said she was trying to be more private about our relationship, that she didn't want to be one of those people who overshared their personal life online. I wanted to believe all of her explanations because I loved her and trusted her. I thought maybe wedding planning stress was making her act differently. I figured once we got married and settled into our new life together, things would go back to normal. I was completely wrong. The truth came out in the most mundane way possible. 3 months after the proposal, we were at her company's annual summer barbecue. I had finally convinced her to let me come as her date, though she seemed nervous about it for weeks beforehand. At the barbecue, I was talking to one of her coworkers, Jake, who seemed like a nice guy. We were making small talk about weekend plans when he mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "Oh, you're dating Bessie now." That's cool, man. I didn't know she was seeing anyone seriously. She never mentioned having a boyfriend when we've talked. I stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. Actually, we're engaged. Have been for 3 months now. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. Complete shock, followed immediately by the awkward realization that he had said something he shouldn't have. "Oh shit, man. I'm sorry, I had no idea." She never mentioned. She doesn't wear a ring at work or anything. That conversation haunted me for the rest of the barbecue. I watched Bessie interact with her coworkers and suddenly everything looked different. She introduced me to people as her friend or just by my name, never as her fiancé. When people asked how we knew each other, she kept the answers vague. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Jake's reaction, about the way she had introduced me, about all the little things that suddenly seemed connected. My gut was telling me something was very wrong, but my heart didn't want to believe it. The next few days were torture. I found myself analyzing every interaction we had, looking for clues, trying to figure out if I was being paranoid or if my instincts were right. Part of me wanted to just ask her directly, but something held me back. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Then I decided I needed to know for sure. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I had to know the truth. The uncertainty was eating me alive, and I couldn't move forward with wedding planning without knowing what was really going on. One evening when she was in the shower, I looked at her phone. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate for answers. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. She had Instagram and Tinder accounts I knew nothing about. On Instagram, she had created a completely separate profile under a slightly different name, using her middle name instead of her first name. All of her photos showed her as clearly single, pictures of her out with friends at work events on trips. But any photos that included me had been cropped or not posted at all. The Tinder profile was even worse. Recent activity, active conversations, plans to meet up with guys. In her bio, she described herself as single and looking for something serious. There were dozens of matches, ongoing conversations, where she was clearly flirting, making plans for dates. I took screenshots of everything, my hands shaking the entire time. Message after message where she was arranging to meet other men, telling them she was single, even complaining about how hard it was to find a good guy to settle down with. The timeline made me sick. Some of these conversations had been happening since before I proposed. She had been living this double life for months, maybe longer. But I needed more proof. Over the next week, I started paying closer attention to her patterns. When she said she was working late, I drove by her office. Her car wasn't there. When she said she was having girls' night with her friends, I called one of them to see if they wanted to grab coffee. She had no idea what I was talking about. I felt like a detective, investigating my own life. Every lie I uncovered made me feel sicker, but I had to know the full extent of what she was doing. The worst part was how normal she acted around me, planning our wedding, talking about our future, being affectionate and loving. It was all completely fake, and she was good enough at it that I had no idea. As I dug deeper, the lies just kept multiplying. It wasn't just the dating apps. She had constructed an entire alternate version of her life where I didn't exist. On her secret Instagram, she had hundreds of followers who clearly thought she was single. Coworkers, guys from college, random people she had met through her fake dating life. She was actively maintaining relationships with all of these people, presenting herself as available and looking for love. The Tinder conversations revealed that she had actually been on dates with multiple guys over the past several months. Real dates, dinners, drinks, movies. While I was at home, planning our wedding, she was out with other men, probably telling them the same lies she had been telling me. I found hotel receipts in her car that corresponded with nights she had told me she was staying late for work projects. Credit card charges at restaurants across town during times when she said she was in meetings. A whole financial trail of her secret life that she had been hiding from me. The most devastating discovery was a conversation thread where she was telling one of her matches about how she was looking for someone to build a real future with someone who understood her and shared her values. Everything she was saying to this stranger was exactly what she had been saying to me for 3 years. She had even been bad-mouthing me to some of these guys, complaining about having to deal with clingy people in her life, talking about how she was ready to start fresh with someone new. Reading those messages felt like being punched in the stomach. The wedding planning suddenly made sense in a horrible way. She wasn't planning our future. She was going through the motions while actively looking for a way out. Maybe she thought she could find someone better before the wedding. Or maybe she was just keeping her options open in case our relationship didn't work out. Either way, I was living with a complete stranger. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I wanted to spend my life with, didn't actually exist. She was just a character Bessie played when she was around me. I had been completely and utterly fooled. Once I had all the evidence I needed, I knew I had to be smart about how I handled this. My first instinct was to confront her immediately, to throw the evidence in her face and demand answers, but I realized that would just give her a chance to lie more, to manipulate the situation, to try to convince me that I was misunderstanding what I had seen. Instead, I decided to take control of the situation completely. I spent a weekend planning my exit strategy. First, I went to the bank and withdrew the entire $28,000 from our wedding savings account. It was my money. I had earned it and saved it, so I had every right to take it back. I opened a new account at a different bank where she couldn't access it. Next, I found a new apartment across town and put down a deposit. I arranged for movers to come during the day while she was at work, so I could get all of my belongings out of our shared apartment without having to see her or explain anything. I also made copies of all the evidence I had gathered and stored them in multiple places: cloud storage, email, a safe deposit box. I wasn't sure if I would ever need them, but I wanted to be prepared for any situation. The hardest part was acting normal around her during those final few days. She had no idea what was coming. She was still making wedding plans, still lying about her evening activities, still pretending to be the loving fiancé while secretly shopping for my replacement. On moving day, I left a simple note on the kitchen counter. I know about the dating apps, the secret Instagram, and all the lies. The wedding is off. Don't contact me. Then I turned off my phone and disappeared from her life completely. I found out later what happened in the hours and days after she discovered I was gone. She called and texted frantically, but I had blocked her number. She showed up at my old job, but I had already arranged to work remotely for a while. She tried to get my friends and family to intervene, but I had already told them what happened and asked them not to get involved. What I didn't expect was how quickly her carefully constructed double life would fall apart. Apparently, the coworker Jake felt guilty about accidentally revealing that she had been hiding our relationship. He started asking around the office, and it came out that several people had seen her on dating apps or knew about her secret social media accounts. Word spread quickly through her workplace. Her boss called her in for a meeting about inappropriate use of company time and resources. Turns out she had been using work hours and work events to facilitate her dating life, and that was against company policy. She tried to deny everything, but too many people had already confirmed what was going on. She got fired within a week of me leaving. The news reached her parents through her coworkers. Apparently, her mom was friends with someone from her office. When her parents found out that she had been cheating on her fiancé and lying about being single while planning a wedding, they were mortified. They'd already sent out save-the-date cards to their friends and extended family. Her parents demanded the engagement ring back so they could return it and get some of their money back from the wedding deposits they had already made. When she couldn't produce it immediately, it caused another huge fight. The domino effect was swift and brutal. Her reputation in her social circle was destroyed. Friends started taking sides, and most of them sided with honesty and loyalty, values she had clearly abandoned. She tried to control the narrative, telling people I had abandoned her without explanation, that I was cruel and heartless. But too many people knew the truth by then. Update: it's been 2 weeks since I left, and the drama is still unfolding. Bessie has been in complete damage control mode, but it's not working. She's been telling anyone who will listen that I overreacted, that the dating apps were just for attention, and she never actually cheated. She claims she was going through a pre-wedding anxiety phase and made some bad decisions, but that she never would have gone through with anything. According to her, I should have talked to her instead of just disappearing. The problem with her story is that too many people have seen the evidence. Jake from her office felt so bad about the whole situation that he came clean to their HR department about everything he knew. Turns out she had been using her work computer to access dating sites and had been taking long lunches for meetings that were actually dates. Her former company is considering whether to take legal action for time theft and misuse of company resources. She had been claiming work-related expenses for some of her dates, apparently telling guys that she had to leave early for client dinners, when she was actually billing those meals to her employer. The wedding vendors have been calling both of us looking for payment. When I explained the situation, most of them were understanding about canceling contracts, especially since we hadn't made final payments yet. But Bessie had apparently made some commitments using credit cards that she can't afford to pay off now that she's unemployed. Her parents have completely cut her off financially. They're furious about the embarrassment she's caused and refuse to help with any of the wedding-related expenses. She racked up. They had to personally call family members to explain why the wedding was canceled, which was humiliating for them. The apartment lease was in both our names, but I had been paying the majority of the rent. She can't afford it on her own and is having to move back in with her parents at 27 years old. Several mutual friends have reached out to me privately to apologize for not saying anything sooner. Apparently, some of them had seen her on dating apps or heard rumors, but they didn't know how to approach me about it. They feel guilty for not speaking up, but I don't blame them. It wasn't their responsibility to police her behavior. People keep asking how I stayed so calm throughout this whole process. The truth is, once I discovered the extent of her lies, I felt strangely peaceful about my decision. There was no point in getting angry or trying to fight for a relationship that had never been real in the first place. She had already made her choice. She had chosen deception over commitment, strangers over her fiancé, and instant gratification over building a life together. Sometimes trash takes itself out. You just have to help it along. Final update, it's been 3 months since I discovered Bessie's double life, and I can honestly say it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Walking away without a dramatic confrontation was absolutely the right choice. Bessie never found another job in marketing. Word had spread through the professional community about why she was fired, and apparently employers in that field talked to each other. She ended up taking a retail job at significantly lower pay, which meant she had to stay living with her parents indefinitely. The guy she was most serious about on Tinder, the one she had been telling about wanting to build a real future with someone, found out about the whole situation through mutual social media connections. He felt completely deceived and publicly called her out for lying about being single. That post got shared widely and basically destroyed what was left of her dating prospects. She made several pathetic attempts to get me back. She showed up at my new apartment building, but security wouldn't let her up. She sent letters through mutual friends trying to explain that she had been confused and scared about getting married, that she loved me and had made a terrible mistake. She even offered to go to couples counseling to work through what she called our communication issues. I never responded to any of it. There was nothing to communicate about. She had shown me exactly who she was, and I believed her. My life has improved dramatically since removing her toxicity. I used the wedding fund to pay off my student loans and take a vacation to Japan, something I had always wanted to do but never could afford. I got promoted at work partly because I could focus completely on my career without the distraction of planning a fake future. I've started dating again, and it's amazing how different it feels to be with someone honest. The woman I'm seeing now is straightforward about her. Feelings introduces me proudly to her friends and coworkers and actually seems excited to be building something real together. The contrast is striking. I learned to trust my instincts completely. When something feels wrong, it usually is. When someone's actions don't match their words, believe the actions. When someone makes you feel like you're asking for too much by expecting basic honesty and loyalty, you're not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong person. To those saying I was too harsh for disappearing without giving her a chance to explain, respect yourself enough to know that some betrayals don't deserve a conversation. She had months to come clean about her double life and chose deception every single day. I don't owe someone who was actively replacing me while planning our wedding a chance to lie to my face one more time. Cheaters don't deserve protection from the consequences of their choices. They made the decision to destroy the relationship. You're just refusing to pretend it still exists.